Every morning when I wake up, I got a new step. It's because of him I can face what's next. No matter what I'm going through, he's the answer. That's the reason why I sing his praise like an anthem. And did I mention that he can't lose? I lost count of how many times he came through. Strong God, ain't no mountain that he can't move. And every day I just need a fresh encounter with you.
I feel renewed, refreshed. I can conquer every day, no stress. I can win with you. And all I need is a fresh encounter with you.
I'm excited because we are starting a brand new 2-week series called The Cost of Excess Baggage. The cost of excess baggage. Hence the baggage you see on the stage, hence the opening video. And I want you to meet me in 1 Samuel chapter 10, beginning at verse number 1. You can remain seated, but the scriptures are right there in the app. You can follow along with us on the screen, or even if you brought your Bible. 1 Samuel chapter 10, beginning at verse number 1, and then we're going to drop down to verse 20. It says, "Then Samuel took a flask of olive oil and poured it on Saul's head and kissed him." This is when Saul is anointed and chosen to be the first king of Israel. And Samuel anointed his head and kissed him, saying, "Has not the Lord anointed you ruler over his inheritance?" Now drop down to verse 20. Because after Samuel anoints Saul, Samuel pulls the entire nation together to reveal who God has chosen. And it says, when Samuel had all Israel come forward by tribes, the tribe of Benjamin was taken by lot. Then he brought forward the tribe of Benjamin clan by clan, and Matri's clan was taken. Finally, Saul, son of Kish, was taken. And when they had looked for him, he was not to be found. So they inquired further of the Lord, "Has the man come here yet?" And the Lord said, "Yes, but he's hidden himself." Where? Among the baggage. So Saul is selected. Samuel says, this is the man that God has chosen to be the first king of Israel. And when people look for him and say, "Where is he?" And they say, "Well, God, is he here?" God says, "Yes, he's here, but look behind all that baggage." They ran and brought him out, and he stood among the people, and he was a head taller than any of the others. And Samuel said to all of the people, "Do you see the man the Lord has chosen? There is no one like him among all the people." Then the people shouted, "Long live the king." I want to talk for the next couple of weeks about the cost of excess baggage. This series is really about relationships, whether you're married, single, married, want to be single, single, want to be married, divorced, widow, somewhere in between. I want to talk about the cost of excess baggage. And this series in particular is really near and dear to my heart because on today, my lovely wife and I are celebrating 12 amazing years of marriage. Woo! It's our anniversary. Anniversary. I guess you guys have never heard that song, okay. Well, this series and this subject in particular is a big deal for me because celebrating 12 amazing years of marriage, the truth is when I look back over those years, when I think about when I first met my wife, long before we got married, what I realize is that I had a lot of emotional baggage. And the fact that God has blessed us for 12 amazing years is really because God walked me through unpacking my excess baggage. The truth is, I talk a lot about my story and some of my baggage in my book, The People Factor, But the main thing I want you to understand is that it was my baggage that almost caused me to miss one of the greatest things God has ever done for me in introducing me to my wife. And I share that in the very beginning because the truth is, if we can be honest, we all gather emotional baggage over the course of our lives. Some of you thinking, well, what is emotional baggage? Emotional baggage is the negative, unprocessed emotions that we've acquired over the years. And these feelings come from places and people and behavior and even experiences from our past that we still allow to have a negative impact on our present. We all gather emotional baggage as we journey through life. But the problem is that when we collect excess baggage that we don't unpack, what it does is it prevents us from having meaningful relationships, and it ultimately jeopardizes our future. And over the many years of me serving God and serving people, unfortunately, I have seen many God-ordained relationships and opportunities fail unnecessarily, only because people didn't deal with their excess baggage. And I want to say this, and I want you to hear me very clearly. The failure of God-ordained relationships and opportunities is completely unnecessary. It doesn't have to end the way that, unfortunately, many relationships end. But it happens far too often because people simply are carrying excess baggage. And when those relationships fail, here's a rebuttal that a lot of people give. Well, I can do fine on my own. I mean, I don't need them. I'm good. I'm anointed. I'm straight. I can work it by myself. And we have songs and we have mantras. You know, I on my own. I'm good. Right. But here's the problem, though. We say that, and a lot of times we say that as a rebuttal or as a defense mechanism. And what we miss is that from the very beginning of time until now, whenever God has done anything in the world and anything in the life of people, guess how he's done it? Through relationships. And I know some people get so deep and so spiritual, and they say, well, I don't need anybody. God is so awesome, Pastor, that if God wants to bless me, he can send a check in the mail. But wait a minute, boo, you still need a relationship to get that check. The mailman has to deliver it. He still is working through people and through relationships. I say this to you because I want you to understand this. People, relationships are the vehicles, the conduits through which God works in our lives. Think about it for a moment. When God wanted to create a nation for himself, he did it through a person, a man by the name of Abraham, and his relationships. When God wanted to liberate the children of Israel from Egyptian slavery, how did he do it? He did it through a person, a man by the name of Moses, and his relationships. When God wanted to move those individuals out of the wilderness into the promised land, how did he do it? He did it through a person, a man by the name of Joshua, and his relationships. Many years later, when they were exiled and God allowed them to come back to Jerusalem, to the promised place, and they needed to rebuild the city and rebuild the walls, how did God do it? He did it through a person, a man named Nehemiah, and his relationships. When God wanted to extend salvation to humanity, how did he do it? He did it through a person, a man named Jesus. And guess how we're saved? Through our relationship with him. I want you to understand that God works through people and relationships. But if you have excess baggage, it will cause you to miss God's very best for your life, because you will forfeit the relationships through which God is often working. The background of the verses of scripture that we read a moment ago is that God is working through Samuel. The children of Israel asked for a king, and God reveals to Samuel, who's serving as priest, who that king is going to be. And God calls Samuel to anoint Saul. And he anoints Saul. He says, Saul, God has chosen you. And he says, you go down ahead of me. I'm going to come down. I'm going to pull the entire nation together. And then I'm going to present you to them as their new king. And sure enough, that's what he does. He pulls the nation together, and he goes through tribe by tribe and says, God has chosen
Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin. And then he goes through the tribe of Benjamin and says, Matri's clan. And he winnows it down and says, and the man that God has chosen to be king is Saul. Saul, come on down. And he doesn't move. And the people say, what, is he here? Samuel says, God, where is Saul? God says, oh, he's over there, but he's hiding. What is he hiding behind? He's hiding behind baggage. The baggage is preventing him from moving into what God has called him to, what God has ordained for him. And the story of Saul is a tragic story because the same baggage that he is hiding behind when he is called to be king over the nation of Israel is the same baggage that trips him up and ultimately causes God to move on from Saul and to ultimately choose David. It's his baggage that cost him one of the greatest opportunities that God had ever extended to him in his life. Now, the airlines, they've gotten pretty wise because the airlines will now charge you if you have excess baggage. I was traveling recently with my family, and as we were going through the ticket counter, there was a man who had a whole bunch of baggage, and the lady, she just said, sir, I'm sorry, you have too many bags, you have too much baggage, and it's going to cost you $300, sir, if you want to take all of this baggage. And he just got an attitude. I can't believe this, and he was smacking his teeth and looking around, and he was all kinds of expletives were coming out of his mouth, and he was huffing and puffing, and she said, sir, we didn't pack all these bags. I don't know why you're getting mad at us. You packed these bags, sir. This is your baggage. And if you want to travel on our airlines with your baggage, it's going to cost you $300. What am I trying to tell you? Not only in air travel, but in life, excess baggage will cost you. Teach, Pastor. I intend to. So first of all, let me share with you some of the sources of the emotional baggage that threatens relationships. Let me give you some of the sources. And you hear it in how Saul responds to Samuel when Samuel anoints him. When Samuel first meets Saul and he says, God has chosen you to be the first king of Israel. Pay attention to what Saul says in response to Samuel, but because he's showing us some of the sources of this excess baggage, where some of this baggage comes from. In 1 Samuel 9:21, notice what Saul says to Samuel in response. Saul answered and says, but wait a minute. Am I not a Benjamite from the smallest tribe of Israel, and is not my clan the least of all the clans of the tribe of Benjamin? Why do you say such stuff to me? In that statement alone, he's pointing to several sources of excess baggage. One of the sources that he alludes to right off the bat, number one, are family issues. Family issues often are a big source of our baggage. When Saul says, but I'm a Benjamite, he's talking about the fact that he is a descendant of the tribe of Benjamin. Benjamin was the last son born to Jacob and Rachel. Rachel, in fact, dies in childbirth, dies in the process of giving birth to Benjamin. And it's a horrific story, so much so that in her dying breath, she names him Benoni, which literally means son of my sorrow. She's dying and she says, this is so painful. You're causing me sorrow. I'm trying to give birth to you and I'm dying. And she names him Benoni, but then later his father Jacob changes his name from Benoni, son of my sorrow, to Benjamin, son of my right hand. And so Saul says, wait a minute. All of my family issues, I grew up without my mom, and I was the cause of my mother's death. And Saul is saying, so my family issues clearly ought to disqualify me from this opportunity. This is why parents, particularly when you have children, your relationship decisions are not your own. Parents will say, well, it's just, I got to do what I got to do. This is my life. I can't live my life for them. Well, no, wait a minute. You partially do. because your decisions shape your children's understanding of who they are and even how they approach relationships. Well, so what are the number one source? Family issues. Here's another one, past issues. When he says that I'm a Benjamite, he's also referencing the fact that when you look at the history of the children of Israel, the tribe of Benjamin had a pattern of making bad decisions. And so Saul is saying, but wait a minute, my tribe, I'm not a Levite. I'm not from the creme de la creme. I'm not from the upper echelon of tribes. My tribe has got a history of making bad decisions. See, I hear a lot of people talking about generational curses, but I don't hear as many people talking about generational patterns. Because it's your patterns that affect not just you. Your patterns of decisions are not just about you. They affect the generations coming behind you. Several generations removed, Saul is saying, it can't be me because my tribe, they always make bad decisions. Another source of emotional baggage, number 3, are daddy issues. Yeah, if you can't say amen, just say ouch. Daddy issues. When Saul, look at this, when Saul has this encounter with Samuel, Saul is literally on an errand for his father. His father sends Saul to go look for lost livestock. His father is a farmer. So part of the reason he has this baggage is because he's just following in the footsteps of his father. And he's thinking, my dad did this. And so my dad's a farmer. So I'm out here looking for some lost livestock. And now you're telling me that I'm supposed to be the king? You say, no. That can't be the fact. It can't be right. A big source of baggage for a number of people are dad issues. In one way or another, a big source of baggage comes back to the father. Maybe it's the absence of the father. Maybe it's the example of the father. This was my biggest source of emotional baggage. My dad wasn't around when I was growing up. I have no memory of my father being in the house, and I grew up frustrated and angry because my dad wasn't there. And I was petrified of marriage, scared to death of marriage. Because I was afraid that I was going to end up messing it up just like my father did. So what I had in my mind, I don't know if the singles can be honest today and identify with this, but this is how I used to roll. I had this mental checklist in my mind. And I had this checklist, and whenever I would meet a woman, if she did not meet everything on my list. See, I wish y'all could be real. Bessemer, Aniston, online, I know y'all with me. I had this mental checklist, and I would go through check. Oh, no, she don't have that. Okay, this is nice meeting you. That's it. Because for me, I thought, well, the easiest way that I can hopefully do this thing right is that I have to find somebody that has every box checked. But there's no such person. But I had that issue because it went all the way back to my father, Teach Pastor Van. This is why, fathers, let me say this to you. I understand that the greatest thing that I could ever do for my children, beyond providing, beyond going to their games, all that's important. But the greatest thing that I can do for my children, listen to me, fathers, is love their mother. That's the greatest thing I can do for my children. Because it's in how I love their mother that I am shaping their life. My children will grow up understanding what marriage is, not by what they heard or watched on TV or read in a book, but by what they saw teach from their father and their mother. Here's another big source. Number 4, insecurity issues. That's a big source. The last thing Saul says to Samuel is, why do you say such things to me? Samuel's anointing him. He says, God has chosen you. He says, what? Why do you say this to me? I'm from Benjamin's tribe. I'm the least of the clan. Surely you're not talking to me. It can't be. You got this thing wrong. He says, why do you say such things to me? Because of his family issues, because of his past issues, because of his daddy issues, they left him with insecurity issues. We did a Twitter poll, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this today. I'm going to really unpack this on next week. But we did a Twitter poll. Over 130 some odd thousand people connect with us on Twitter, and we just did a poll. We said, what do you think is the main reason for baggage in relationships? And overwhelmingly, 48% of the people that responded, they all said insecurity. Wrap your mind around that. This is why sometimes when people are responding, you don't need to respond to the way they respond. You gotta be wise enough to see behind what they say. Because often the source that is fueling what they say or even how they say it is not you. It's something deeper than that. Some of it is insecurity. These are some of the sources of our excess baggage. But secondly, you got to know the signs that you have too much baggage in relationships. You got to know the signs, because I can tell just by the way that you're looking at me. Some wives are like nudging their husbands, like, you hear what Pastor's saying? This is for you. This is for you. Some of you looking like, I got this, Pastor. I'm with you. We right here. Look at him. Look over there. Look at him, Pastor. Point your finger in his direction. I was just telling this to him on last night. He got too much baggage. Hold on before you dismiss it and think it's just for him. What? Hold on a second. Hold on. Let's see if you have some of the signs that you have too much baggage. Here's a big sign: when you play the blame game. That's a sign that you're carrying excess baggage in your relationships. Maybe they're professional, maybe they're personal, maybe they're friendships, platonic relationships. But when you play the blame game, have you ever met someone that is never their fault? I mean, it could be their responsibility in their home, in their lap. What happened? See, what happened was, when Tony and them, he did this, and then what it led from here to here. That's the only reason I'm dealing with this right now. I guess nobody's ever met anybody like that. Here's another one. When you have control issues. Number 2, when you have control issues, that's a sign that you have excess baggage. And here's the thing about control. The desire to control often happens because at some point in a person's past, there were things that happened that were out of their control. And so from that painful, hurtful, frustrating, or disappointing experience, what they vowed is, I will never again be there. And so they go through life trying to control and manipulate everything so that they can keep it from ever hurting them again. But here's the problem. You can't control people. People need freedom to make their own decisions. And the truth is, sometimes those decisions will be the right ones, sometimes they will be the wrong ones, but it's their own decision. But if you got control issues, that's a sign that you're carrying too much baggage. Here's another one. When you are unable to receive criticism. When you are unable to receive criticism, that's a sign. Ooh, it got really quiet in here. That's a sign that you got too much baggage. And let me tell you why this sign is really dangerous, because the truth is, we all have blind spots. Doesn't matter how great your vision is. I have to wear glasses, maybe you don't, but you can go to any eye doctor, any ophthalmologist, and they will tell you that no matter how good or how poor your sight is, everybody is born with blind spots. There are things about us that we cannot see. That's part of the reason why God will send people in your life to help point out those blind spots so that you can move further down the road of your purpose and your destiny. I've learned over the 12 years that that's one of the greatest gifts that God has given me through my wife. Now, when we were dating and all that stuff years ago, she'd say, I don't think you want to go there. And I'm like, what? I got this. I guess I got this. Nobody else has ever had that kind of conversation. Brothers, listen to me. I got this. This is what I say. I got this. And it will blow up in my face. And then she'd say later on, how did that work out for you? And I don't want to talk about it right now. See, why are you trying to bring it up? You trying to throw it up in my face? She said, I was just wondering. But on the inside, I was cringing. Because God was like, I tried to tell you. Here's another one. Number 4, when you always have a negative mindset. Here's another sign of baggage. When you always have a negative mindset. Ever met anybody that no matter what it is, they're always negative? I mean, they could be holding a winning lottery ticket in their hand. They're like, I don't, you can't really trust these. I'm a double check this because it looks like a 1 to me. You say it's a 7, I don't really believe it. I mean, no matter what is going on, they're always negative. That negativity comes from excess baggage that has not been unpacked. Have you ever paid attention to how optimistic children are? I mean, children are hopeful. They're optimistic. You know why? Because we're all born that way. But then what happens? Life happens. Disappointments and letdowns. And then if you don't unpack those bags, you build walls and you try to do life from behind those walls. And that's that place of negativity. And then there's some people who say, oh, I was just born this way. This is just the way I am. Well, no, that's not true. As a matter of fact, it's been scientifically proven that when babies are born, talking about fear and negativity, babies are only born with 2 fears. The fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. Everything else that leads us down the road of negativity, guess what? It's learned behavior. So guess what? If you learn how to do it, then guess what? You can unlearn it. Teach, Pastor Van. I am. Here's the last one. Last sign. When you are stuck in the past. It's a sign that you're carrying too much baggage. When you're stuck in the past. When you cannot move past the past, it's a really big sign that you got excess baggage. When you're holding on to stuff that happened 5 years ago, 15 years ago, 30 years ago. You just don't understand, Pastor. You're 45. Yeah, but see, when I was 15, my cousin did this to me, and that's why I don't trust my family. You can't trust family. Wait, whoa. We're talking about something that happened 30 years ago. And oftentimes, here's what we say when we're stuck in the past. Well, let me just move on. But when you're stuck in the past, you don't go anywhere. As a matter of fact, when you are stuck in the past, you take the bricks from your past into your present and future and ultimately build the same house. And what's worse than that is that often when you're stuck in the past, you make the people of your present pay for the pain that the people of your past caused you. This is part of the reason why it's so hard sometimes to recognize your blessings when they're right in your face. Because you are not seeing them with clear lenses. You're looking at the people that God has sent in your life to bless you, to help you, but you're looking at them through the lens of the people that hurt you in your past. You got to understand the sources of the excess baggage. You got to recognize, number 2, the signs that you have excess baggage. But thirdly and finally, let's deal with the solutions. The solutions to this excess baggage. When God brings the nation together, and Samuel says, I'm going to show you who God has chosen to be king. Saul is hiding behind the baggage. And sadly, it's this same baggage that causes God to move on from Saul to David and causes Saul to miss God's very best for his life. Look at 1 Samuel 15 and verse 10. Notice what God says to Samuel. He says, then the word of the Lord came to Samuel, and God says this, I regret that I have made Saul king. God says, I, an all-knowing God, I am grieved that I gave him a shot, because he's turned away from me and he has not carried out my instructions. And Samuel was angry and cried out to the Lord all night. You drop down to verse 23 when Samuel goes to Saul, and Samuel says this to Saul, because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you as king.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Fresh Encounter. For more from Van Moody, visit vanmoody.org, where you can access free resources, subscribe to the Freedom Podcast, as well as find great gift ideas for yourself or a friend. Also, be sure to connect with us on all social media platforms. We look forward to seeing you next time on Fresh Encounter.